you then lived as a woman, or is that
I transitioned, right in 97, 98.
And that's when you were speaking about looking for work at that point.
And looking,
and
and
looking.
looking, and looking. Yeah, I thought it would be, of course, I came from a corporate world. I'd been CEO of multinational corporations for 20 years. And my last one we sold, and my friends assumed that my next step would be like a Fortune 500 company, or because it was privately held. But, life took me a little different direction. And so I assumed, people would look at my skills and look at my experience and look at my accomplishments. And that wasn't the case. Over 100 times that wasn't the case.
100 times.
Yeah.
And you have the full skill set that you need, and probably more than you need in some of the cases.
Right. And I ended up driving a cab for a while, and I was a census taker for a while, and I worked as a teller in a bank for a while. And so, you do what you have to do.
And during those times, did you have run-ins with the police? I mean, were there certain times that you were harassed or felt?
I really never did. In fact, when I was driving a cab, I had really good experience with the police. I got in an accident, and the cop came, and he was very nice to me, and I didn't have a negative, but I knew a lot of people that did. And I used to go to support groups and both attend support groups, and every now and then I would facilitate a support group in the Tenderloin. And there were a lot of girls down there that had lots and lots of problems with police. And I hear stories every day about problems with police.
And do you think that just comes from not understanding exactly what it is that they're dealing with? Because you have the police, and I come from a family of police. I have 9 in my family.
Oh, really?
So everyone says the force is with me. But, the whole thing is, I don't think they really would understand my dad and my uncle and that. They weren't trained in this or had any really knowledge of this, and so when they're confronted with it, they don't know what to do, and so...
Well, transgender women, men and women, but women have been around San Francisco a long time. I mean, the Tenderloin, a long time. Finocchio's in North Beach,
right next to Enrico's,
Right next to Enrico's, right. And so they, the officers knew what we were. They didn't understand what it meant. I think they thought we were gays or super gays or, whatever. And they certainly didn't know how to deal with us. And a lot of the girls, were sex workers in the Tenderloin, and so they didn't know exactly what that meant. And were those gay sex workers or straight, or what were those people? And so there was a lot of confusion. And it wasn't until we were able to develop some protocols really after 2001, 2002. I was on the Human Rights Commission, and we formed a committee with the San Francisco Police Department and the commission and community members to educate them. And it was a task force that lasted 2 years, coming up with protocols, teaching the officers how to even address a transgender person. And now we have ongoing training, and back then, 50% of all allegations of violence against transgender people allegedly came from police officers. And now that's dropped 95%.
Wow.
So we've made some progress in how the interaction occurs.
And was that shaky progress? I mean, was that something that they...
Yeah, it was scratching with fingernails on the blackboard kind of progress. Yeah, it was not easy.
But necessary, definitely.
Well, necessary, and it turned out to be productive for both the department and the community. And now, people still do things wrong, and there's still prostitutes, and there's still, but excuse me, but the way it comes down and the way they're addressed and the interaction is different. They use the right pronouns for the most part, and they understand the identity issues, and they understand where to put them, whether they put them in, depending on how to house them and how to transport transgender people, and all that is now institutionalized in the San Francisco Police Department, and we now send those out to departments all over the country, and they're training their officers on how to do it. So it's a lot of progress.
And more open in other parts of the United States as well. Imagine
hopefully.
we're the leaders, and so I love San Francisco.
We are indeed.
Definitely. So Willie Brown was the one that appointed you to the Civil Rights Commission, and he was sensitive to those aspects and knew what was going on?
He was sensitive to the politics of the time, and Mark Leno was a supervisor, and so Mark was able to convince him to appoint me, and I'm not sure he even knew who I was the day he swore me in, but we got to know each other a little bit, and he knows who I am now, and I certainly know who he is, so, yeah.
Wonderful. Now, how did you make the step from working the different jobs that you have into becoming on the police commission and president of the police commission? How did that
Well, it's really two
transpire?
paths. One is my job path, and I worked all these jobs, and actually was hired at Good Vibrations in the shipping department over the holidays, and I packed boxes of various products.
And various size boxes.
Various size and shape boxes, right, exactly. The Good Vibrations would sell, people around the country.
And in case someone doesn't know what Good Vibrations is, Google it. Because it's worth it. It's a wonderful store here in San Francisco.
It is.
So you worked in the shipping?
So I worked in the shipping, and they had a job as basically the chief financial officer, and so I applied and got the job, and so I went from shipping clerk to chief financial officer of Good Vibrations. And it's a company of $15 million. I mean, it's over 100 employees, so it's not a small organization. It had stores at that time, 3 stores or 2 stores. Now it has 4 stores. And I went from there to CEO of the company, and I worked there 8 years. And so that was kind of my professional path. Mm-hmm. Although one thing, my favorite thing in Good Vibrations is last year I got to go to the Porn Oscars in Las Vegas. It's everybody needs to go to the Porn Oscars at least one time.
What's that statue look like?
Oh, no, well, I don't know about the statue, but all these girls get up there and they just go, thank you so. And it's exactly like you'd imagine it.
Best group C.
No, it's best this and that, and twos and twosomes and threesomes, and you name it.
Wow.
There's 125 categories.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to start guessing.
Oh yeah, Okay,
well I got there about 20.
Yeah.
So
then there was the public path, but basically it was simultaneously. And I went from from the Human Rights Commission, and then was involved in this task force to develop these protocols with the police, got to know a lot of people on the department, I got to understand the interaction with the community, and then the Board of Supervisors appointed me to the Police Commission in 2004. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, it blows my mind that you're working with the Police Commission and Good Vibrations simultaneously.
Yeah, blew my mind too.
That's amazing. And it must have, I can't even begin to think of what the reaction from the police department would be.
It wasn't good. I tell the story that the day I was appointed to the Police Commission, there was a meeting at the Board of Supervisors at City Hall that they appointed me. Mm-hmm. And so we got out of the meeting, and everybody was happy. And but I wanted to go to a meeting at the Hall of Justice, which is 7 blocks away, mm-hmm. to go to a meeting on the 5th floor to watch then the old Police Commission mm-hmm. operate. It had a meeting. And so I got in my car, drove over there, 10 minutes maybe, parked my car, walked in the Hall of Justice, and as I walked through the Hall of Justice to the 5th floor, every time I passed an officer, an officer said, "Congratulations, Commissioner." So within,
all new in 10
it went
minutes.
out on whatever, their Blackberries, and it lit up, apparently. And so they knew very, very quickly. And I don't think they were very pleased. Well, they didn't know. They didn't know what that meant, And
they
I'm
knew
not
they
sure.
were in for a ride.
I'm not sure I knew what it meant either, but we kind of learned as time went on.
Did you ever sit back and think there's no way this is going to happen, and then it happens, and how did I get here?
I'm so naive because I don't think that way. My brain does not work that way. When I try to do something, I don't think this is not going to happen. I'm just not wired that way, And so I just assumed, not assumed it would happen, but I was very hopeful that it would happen. And when it did happen, I went, this is great. I was really excited. But it's not that I didn't think it wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm.
And someone from the board actually retired or quit when you became president?
No. In 2003, the voters passed a police reform measure, mm-hmm. and it reconstituted the entire police commission, mm-hmm. and it went from 5 members to 7, and all the old commissioners had to resign, and so 7 new commissioners were appointed.
Oh, okay.
And part were appointed by the mayor, and part were appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and I was one of the new commissioners in the reformed police commission.
And so now you've been the president of the police commission for how long now?
2 years.
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What is the thing that you're most proud of that you've done so far?
Oh, that's a hard one. We've done a lot of interesting things. We probably more than anything, we've opened the process up to the public, and we try to be make the department and work with the department in being as transparent and as accountable to the public as possible. And that's probably fundamentally the biggest thing this commission has done and I've been involved in is the transparency now. Mm-hmm. Little things like we've done shooting boards where an officer is involved in a shooting. They have to go before a board of officers, of senior officers, plus a commissioner, plus an investigator. And so there's a lot of little stuff that have occurred along the way that I think have really helped to make the system, to make the police department more accountable to the people.
Mm-hmm. And what's the biggest change that you've seen in the police department since when you started until now?
The biggest change. Well, when I started.